So welcome everybody, this is Nimrod from the Audio Couple, and welcome to the review of the Klipsch bookshelf loudspeakers. So in this case it's the Klipsch RP-600M. But before we start, I'd just like to thank Gordon and Gedaliah from Homation that made it possible for me to review these loudspeakers for you. So let's start with the review. So what can I tell you about the RP-600M? Yeah, it's quite a substantial two-way bookshelf loudspeaker. Of course, it is a bass reflex design with a port at the back, and we'll look at that just now. But if we quickly consider the drivers, it's got two drivers. The mid-bass driver is a 6.5 inch copper spun woofer, and then of course it's got a titanium drive unit as a tweeter, and of course it is horn loaded. What they've then done is also they've included a new silicon waveguide towards the outer edge of the waveguide, and that's supposed to actually smooth out the let's say the frequency response and the actual performance of the tweeter. So yeah, so maybe you will ask, but Nimrod, we've seen so many reviews on YouTube, and there's many reviews on these loudspeakers. What made me decide to also review it? Well, I think for first of all, it was I also wanted to know what all the fuzz or the buzz is all about, and I wanted to hear from myself what the capabilities are of this Klipsch loudspeaker. So I think the main reason why there's a lot of buzz around this loudspeaker is because it's so easy to get very high performance levels from these loudspeakers. It's not too fussy about how you place it, but still the more careful you are in the actual placement or in the way you set it up, I think it can reward you with a lot of fidelity. In my review, I've actually used my test setup, again the Freya Plus preamplifier in valve mode, and then I've connected it to the Quad 909 solid state power amp, and then as a source I used the Elise's to play back some CDs and also some files that is on its hard drive. Or I mount the loudspeakers on some stands. The stands that I've got, they're about 600 millimeters high, and I've placed them around 700 millimeters away from the back wall. It could have at some stage been a bit closer, around 600 millimeters away from the back wall, and of course 600 millimeters above ground level. I would suggest that maybe you place them slightly above 600 millimeters above the ground level, because then the tweeter is more ear level. Not to say that you actually need that, because the tweeter projects quite well into the room, but I think that maybe I had it slightly lower than what should be optimal. I think you can actually achieve better results if you mount it a little bit higher than 600 millimeters. I didn't toe it in too drastically. I had a slight toe in, a lot less than what I would normally toe a loudspeaker, but there was a toe, and of course the toe helps a lot with stereo imaging and then just to complete the sound stage. Yeah, like I stated before, is I think the reason why a lot of people actually prefer this loudspeaker or like this loudspeaker is because it's so versatile and so easy and quick to set up, and once it's set up you can actually achieve very decent results from this loudspeaker, and again I would say room-filling sounds, and also quite detailed sound as well, of course. What is maybe some of the highlights? I think that Klipsch has really improved the overall integration between the tweeter and the woofer. Yeah, the sound is much more coherent, and I think that they've really taken the performance up a notch. Loudspeaker, the whole design is quite neat. The woodworking or the grain that they've accomplished in the actual cabinet of the loudspeaker is quite neat, and it also looks very upmarket, I would say. And then the overall look of the loudspeaker, I just think it oozes a lot of appeal Yeah, so I don't always like to go into negatives around the product that I review, but I think to keep it honest and realistic, you have to also mention some of the things that I've picked up in the review. Other than really fantastic sound, I think that the loudspeaker performed a lot better with the grill removed, and that's not just on the high frequencies. Low frequencies and mid-bass, mid-range actually improved when the grill is off. But then again, I must say that the loudspeaker looks nice and neat with the grill on, and the grill is magnetic, so nothing wrong with the grill design or etc. etc. It's just an observation that I made. In my room, the loudspeaker really performed a lot better with the grill off. Although the loudspeaker projects well into the room, especially on the lower bass frequencies and the tops, I still felt that the real mid-range was a bit recessed into the loudspeaker, and it didn't project into the room as well as what I've heard from some other bookshelves. So maybe there again to the Klipsch engineers, if they can still work on how the loudspeaker actually projects the mid-range into the room, that could be quite a good improvement on the loudspeaker. So what does it tell you about the performance? So yeah, in general the performance was quite good, but the mid-range was definitely a bit recessed. So there's pros and cons for the mid-range being like that, a bit more recessed. In some very busy tracks, or let's say orchestral music or very complex music, you can actually then hear a lot of the detail, in the actual recording when the mid-range is a bit recessed. But in other recordings, again, you miss a bit more of the mid-range and the layering of different instruments, and then also I would say the actual textures of different instruments, typically a guitar. So then if we have a look at the actual finish of the loudspeaker, you'll notice is in that black ash finish, and I must say it's quite pleasing. I like the actual black ash finish of the loudspeaker. Again, a lot of clean lines. Okay guys, so if we have a look at the back of the loudspeaker, you can clearly see quite a significant port there, a square port in the case of Klipsch. And then of course the port enables the bass reflex design, and then if we look at the binding posts, the binding post is such that you can buy amp or buy wire the loudspeaker. In my case, again, I didn't buy amp or buy wire the loudspeaker. I just fit a single pair of wires for each of the channels, and I got very decent results. So for me, I didn't really have to go into that. Not much other than that. If you look at the loudspeaker, you can clearly see the magnet of the compression drive unit, and quite a substantial magnet, I must say. So I think, yeah, good drivers used in them. Of course, it's their proprietary drivers, Klipsch, their own developed drivers. Excellent, I can't fault it as such, especially in the bass. It's got very good tight bass, and for a bookshelf loudspeaker, it actually, the bass goes down quite significantly for a bookshelf loudspeaker. And I think that was part of the appeal as well for a lot of other people, that you can't really anticipate the actual performance that you can get from this loudspeaker. It really gets very close to a floor sounder loudspeaker, and then of course it can also produce room filling sound. If we have a look at the scorecard, you'll also see what my impressions was for the loudspeaker. So in general, a very good result for this loudspeaker, and I think it comes as no surprise. A lot of other people feels the same way. But you'll also notice that for the mid-range, I did give it an 8 out of 10 because I felt that the mid-range was really not projecting into the room. It could be due to various aspects. It could be intentionally that they designed the loudspeaker as such. A lot of people talk about the Klipsch house sound. I think yes, maybe it is a contributing factor that because of the Klipsch house sound, they have this bit of a recess in the mid-range. So perhaps Klipsch can give consideration in their next round of design that they can work to get the mid-range a bit bolder in a way. Or I would say it's not that they should actually get it bolder or that the loudspeaker should have a better mid-range response. I think it's just the way that the mid-range is projected into the room. I think the whole design will benefit from a more projected mid-range, because the tweeter can actually, projects the sound quite well. And then together with the bass driver, the mid-bass driver, it really goes lower than what one would expect from a bookshelf. So that's basically my consideration. So everything top notch about the loudspeaker, the overall design, the look, the feel, the sound, of course. So the only caveat is two things. The one is that it actually produces a lot better sonics for me without the grill. And then the recess, that the mid-range is a bit recessed. So if they can work on the mid-range, I think the grill is not such a big issue for me in general, but if they can work on the mid-range, it will, they will take the actual design up a notch, etc. And that's it. I don't want to make too big of a story of it. I had it in my test system. We had to listen to various genres of music again, but I would say this loudspeaker prefer a bit more energetic music, music with a lot of let's call it bass line. I would recommend it for I would say mostly solid state amplifiers. For me it really performed better. I did connect it onto my VTL/Manleys for a short while because of the sensitivity, but strangely enough I felt that this loudspeaker better match solid state designs. So that's maybe another pointer for you guys. I really think that concerning a power amplifier, you can still use maybe a valve preamplifier like I've done with the Schiit Freya Plus, but when you go to power amplification, I think this design definitely benefits solid state, but it will work on tube designs as well. But if you really want to get good performance, I would say solid state. And then maybe a very last thing is I agree with a lot of other reviewers that I don't think it's 96 dB watt sensitivity. I think it's, it is, they were a bit optimistic. Yeah, so I expected a lot more sensitivity from the loudspeaker, but once you connected that up in the system and you apply volume to the loudspeakers, you can clearly assess that they actually need a bit of power before they really come into their own, and of course before they produce room-filling sound. And I must say, it's also this type of loudspeaker that you can actually play loud. They don't really show any stress or type of fatigue. We didn't really had long listening sessions, but most of the listening sessions it was quite enjoyable. There wasn't any fatigue that crept in or anything like that. And that's it. I don't think I want to make a long story of it. I think there's a lot of reviews out there, but like I stated before to you guys, I wanted to know what the whole the fuzz or the buzz is all about, and now I know what this loudspeaker is capable of. And like I stated before, I think the main reason is because it's so easy to get very good performance from this loudspeakers. I don't think it will require very expensive ancillary equipment, like for instance amplifiers or receivers, to get very good performance out of it. But what I can definitely tell you is the more you're rewarded with better equipment, the better the performance will come. And at some stage I got to a level that I felt really, look, the speaker is really performing quite well in the room. And that's why myself and Teresa will give it our highest recommendation. Guys, if you're in the market for a loudspeaker like this, look, in South Africa it retails for about 13.5 to 14,000 Rand, which is equivalent to about, I would say, close to $800. I know in the States it sells for a bit less, but I think it's because it's a local product, etc. But yeah, if you're in the market for a bookshelf at around 13,000 Rand, 13 to 14,000 Rand, I don't think you can go wrong with this loudspeaker. And as stated again, highly recommend it. You won't go wrong. And I think for the money as well, I don't think you'll get better, except if you really want a more detailed loudspeaker and of course, you're welcome to audition a lot of loudspeakers in this price range. Yeah, so guys, this is us then, Nimrod and Teresa, the audio couple, and the Klipsch, the RP-600Ms. So the Reference Premier series, it's their top line product from Klipsch. You know, I must say I've got a lot of respect for these guys. You know, they've been top selling loudspeakers in the USA for quite so many years, and we can clearly see the reason behind is that yes, they produce excellent loudspeakers, both in actually the way that they look, the overall design, and then of course the sound quality. Yeah, and that's us. I don't know about you, Teresa, if you want to maybe comment something from your side, but I think I've also noticed from your side that we enjoyed our time with the loudspeaker. It was a nice and interesting review. We were quite excited when you know, the loudspeakers arrived at our home, and to unpack them and to then connect them up to the system. You know, there was a lot of anticipation, and I must say, I think they fulfilled our expectations, which is a good thing. And because there's so many reviews out there and a lot of praise for these loudspeakers, our expectations was very high. But yes, I think the loudspeaker fulfilled it. But one thing that I can tell you that is this loudspeaker can really also reproduce electric guitar quite well. On some of the cuts that we listen to. So so very good performance from these loudspeakers, and I think guys, consult the scorecard. It will give you a good indication of what this loudspeaker is capable. Yeah, so from myself and Teresa, it's got our highest recommendation for a loudspeaker, bookshelf loudspeaker of bass reflex design. Yeah, so guys, that's us then, myself, Nimrod, and Teresa, the audio couple. So guys, we would just like to thank you all for making time to watch our videos. We really appreciate your support. If you like our videos, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of our videos, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. But that's then us, the audio couple, Nimrod and Teresa, signing off. Cheers.
Thank you.